everybody, I'm here at TFcon Chicago 2016. I'm talking to 3A Greg, as I've come to know him.
Hello.
And I want to talk to you about a bunch of things, but first and foremost, your Transformer stuff. You've got the whole Dark of the Moon lineup here.
We do. We brought everything. We even brought an early production sample of Starscream with us. Should be shipping out next month, barring any unforeseen circumstances. We'll see what happens. But we brought them out. We wanted to show TF fans what we can do.
And I got to mess with that Optimus, thanks to Ben's Collectibles. Fine gentleman with probably a powerful beard, I'd say.
It's massive. It's incredible.
It's a good one.
It's its own entity.
These Dark of the Moon Transformers are they're action figures. They're licensed. It's kind of the main four names from G1 as they appeared in the films.
Yes.
The size of these figures is fairly intense. It's something you don't really see in photos or even in video, really. When you see them in person, I find a lot of folks, myself included, tend to be a bit shocked.
Yeah, nobody really expects a box the size of a mini fridge to arrive, but when it does, it's overwhelming. But that's kind of the experience we want with people with our figures, is they should be wowed. You know, when you have them in hand, when you see the scale, when you see the detail and the articulation, it should be an impressive factor, especially for the price point that we're selling at.
And with the license that you got, of late, in the last couple of years, it seems that the Transformers license has been getting out to other toy makers with greater frequency.
Yep.
And obviously, you know, it comes with caveats, like most licensed pieces can't actually transform themselves.
Correct.
Because they don't want to, create their own competition.
Yeah.
So when you secure that license, like in this case, when you guys secured Dark of the Moon, as I understand, it's specifically for Dark of the Moon, right? Like this series of figures.
It is, yeah. So we got Dark of the Moon license because that was the film that was coming out at the time, but it took us over 2 years of development to actually get the first figures out, which is why we were so late with them. Fourth movie had already been in theaters by the time I think we got Bumblebee out. But it just came down to like the amount of detailing and effort we put into it to make sure that it was an accurate representation of Bumblebee from the film, and like looking at the ILM CADs and looking at screen caps and getting the paint right. With Dark of the Moon, it was definitely the end goal was to get G1, and I know there's a lot of other companies doing G1 out there, but I think what we're doing at least is putting our own spin on it.
Yeah. Where
it's a little more stylized. It stands out amongst the other more traditional looking Optimus Primes, which isn't to say that they aren't, there aren't great Optimus Primes from other third-party companies out there, but we want to do something different.
Well, it seems like you guys, when you do your license stuff, it seems like there's very little of an attempt to replace an existing property, like with your Marvel stuff, for instance.
Exactly.
There's an artist's bent to it, or with even the Transformer stuff, like the Optimus Prime design.
Yep.
It has a lot of tenants in a classic look, but it is an original like line work design.
Yes.
So when you're doing the movie stuff, because I've seen your guys' large-scale robots before with, say, real steel.
Yes.
Is there still kind of a twist to try to put in there of like...
It more comes down to the engineering and figuring out the articulation is kind of where we have to put our twist in. The other key thing for us is the paintwork and making sure that we're getting the detail, we're getting the weathering in and the grime and making it look used. That's kind of... that's our deal. That's our bag. Is we just want them to look like they've been through hell and back. Yeah.
Well, definitely, like, that's how I got into 3A, was through World War Robot Portable. And, like, that stuff is some of the, like, just, like, there's chunk to it, right?
Yeah.
Like, you get a large Martin with, like, a rust effect, and it's intense.
Yes. It looks like it's been on the battlefield. Ash, who co-owns 3A, is the lead designer and is the man in charge. He's a big World War II junkie, so he's big on the history, he's big on the design elements, he's big on the engineering of those eras, and that's really what goes into his work. And his parents were in the war, so he kind of brings that personal spin into it, trying to capture the feel of that iron and the steel and the rivets.
But then going into the classic stuff you guys are doing, the G1-oriented stuff, like you guys have shown off, I think for the first time, Megatron?
Yes, we finished Megatron maybe 4 or 5 days ago and had him overnighted.
Excellent.
Right before the typhoon. Perfect timing.
Man.
We barely got it approved by Hasbro to show, and it's been a labor of love
Well, the aesthetic you've hit with the G1 toys, like it's I would call it very grounded in a Transformers look. And I know that when the license was announced, there's a lot of talk amongst the fandom about, what is the stylization going to be? Is it going to be
pointy shoes?
Yeah, is it going to be pointy shoes? Is it going to be like the Zaku with the gas mask design? Or?
The funny thing is that's Hasbro, when they reference how far they want us to push these, is they mention the Zaku, they mention the Iron Man.
Yeah.
And they just say, get weird with it, as weird as you want. But Ash and I, we're tag teaming this with our engineer Jackie, and we all kind of came to the same conclusion of we don't want to stray too far because we still want it to retain elements of that character and retain elements from the cartoon.
Yeah.
So we've been going through the Sunbow animation models, and we've been going through the original figures and kind of different G1 interpretations in comics, like especially the 80s comics, and kind of pushing and pulling. And what we really wanted to do essentially is make it an essential version of that character with our spin on it, and then add the 3A weathering to it. Like the Prime that we have here isn't the finished paint. The finished paint, like this was kind of a rush job we did for San Diego Comic-Con, and we just haven't had a chance to add the grime and the weathering that we really want to get on them and make it stand out more.
What I noticed out of the designs myself, I don't know if this is maybe part of it, but the silhouettes have a very low weight to them, kind of like a bell-bottom look. It kind of reminds me of some of that Shogun Warrior aesthetic you guys touched on with World's Best Robot.
Exactly.
And I overheard you before talking about the placement of die-cast on Optimus Prime. It seems like you're going for something that's very play-oriented, I would call it, like with the weight being down by the feet.
We want to give him some heft. We want it to feel like when you get a Shogun Warrior and those old school figures, because that's what Ash grew up on. I have an older brother who weaned me on all these toys, and probably the reason why I collect and am into all of this shit. We want to capture that feeling when you're a kid, and that's the toy that you had, and it's so overwhelming and powerful and cool.
One thing that I'm excited about with these G1 toys, having messed with the Dark of the Moon Optimus and having come from the older, more vinyl-based, ball joint-based World War Robot stuff, is I felt like this Dark of the Moon Optimus was a big step forward in my own experience with your guys' stuff as far as, again, I'll say, like, very play-oriented engineering. It didn't feel fragile. It didn't feel like my experiences I tend to have with Hot Toys pieces, where it feels like articulation is a gift being granted to me. It feels like it's an intent of the piece.
Yeah.
And these G1 toys seem like they would be taking a lot of lessons from that kind of stuff.
That's kind of what we're doing. I think part of the movie line was a test for the G1, and just kind of making sure that we can get that engineering down, and that we're not just relying on ball joints. We want to have ratcheting joints. We want to be like the figure to hold its pose and to be strong enough to hold the pose, especially with die-cast parts and with how heavy the weapons are.
Yeah, and speaking of the weapons, I mean, like we've spoken about this. I'm over the moon that there are tabs on the handles and slots in the palms.
I'm a huge proponent of this. I have hand feel and just very particular about hand design, and making sure that the weapons can clip in and peg in and stay there. Because I love having the moving fingers, but sometimes, like, you always run the risk of the finger, like one finger or two finger is going to be loose.
Yeah.
And it's just not something that's done on purpose, but, hiccups happen in production, but, you want it to be able to hold the gun. And I think just that solution of having a little design plug helps so much.
Yeah, I mean, having gone through 3A stuff over the years and other, designer style toys over the years, and you see a lot of experimentation. You see people getting into, we can have posable fingers. I'm happy when I see a company kind of look at the last 5 years and take that stuff as education, and like, where can we move this stuff forward? I overheard and I see, by how you have the hand pose in front of Optimus, that like it seems you've got some real specific wants out of the hands. Was there anything like going into this, was there like a mission statement for you as far as design, engineering stuff on Optimus?
The ultimate goal was just I wanted a toy that I wanted to play with.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to put out a product, and I know Ash doesn't want to put out a product that we're not excited about. I wanted an Optimus Prime that I wanted as a kid. Like, I wanted him to be able to, like, move and pose and everything look great, and the way it, looks, how it feels. but it wasn't like anything specific. But I definitely, being a toy collector, just I know what I like. I know what I look for in toys, and I wanted to put those elements as much as I could into this.
Well, just stepping slightly to the side in what you guys are working on, I know that you've also got your fingers in on your Judge Dredd and
that's my baby.
And 2000 AD stuff.
Yeah.
I'm a Judge Dredd casual. I'll totally admit. Like my interest for Judge Dredd, I like the design, and I adore the Carl Urban film.
It's so good.
A whole lot.
Yeah.
So seeing you talk about the Dredd stuff, especially on say Tested.com, this video from New York Comic Con. Now that you're moving into having a 1/6 scale Dredd, like is that kind of to you a plateau for that license, or is that just a step forward?
That was something I have worked hard for 4 years now, maybe, just pushing for it. There's been so many hiccups with that line and that license that when we had it, that Ash has so many projects that he needed someone else to step in and be like, okay, take charge of this, make the coolest Judge Dredd figure you can. And that was the only thing he said to me, and that's what the engineers and I set out to do. And Ash would oversee everything. Like, he'd be like, nah, tweak this, make this better. And it's like a dream come true in a weird way, because I've just been a Dredd fan for so long. And and like working with 2000 AD, like they've been so cool.
And just like internally, because you guys have moved into a lot of licensed stuff in the last couple of years, do you think that might be something approach going forward of like with Ash, like working a lot on his own projects and things, kind of delegating out a lot of the heavier management parts of different licensed projects to people who have a lot of enthusiasm behind them?
Yeah, that's kind of what he's trying to surround himself with, and especially with we're also working a lot more with comic artists that have very specific visions, or like we're just doing directly their art style and working with them to do that. Like we're going to work with Paul Pope to do THB, and we're working with Jeff Darrow to do Shaolin Cowboy. We're working with a Greek artist, Yanni. He works on the Prophet comics to do his web series, Old City Blues, which is kind of like a Ghost in the Shell, cyberpunk, like mecha and police story.
Yeah.
It's easier when you have strong visual artists that you're working with, because it means that all I have to do is just be like, no, it looks like this, and just have Yanni or whoever do a new turn, and we just send it to the engineer and the sculptor, and then we just go back and forth on Skype, directing and pushing like the sculpts.
And are you guys like working with this many artists? Are you still looking to pursue a lot of like licensed franchise type stuff as well, or might this be a bit of a shift for a little while?
It's not so much a shift. It's just sort of where things have gone with the direction of the company, and I think it's we're all just comic book fans for the most part. Like Ash has been doing comics for 20 years, and he's at a point in his life where he can just say, yeah, I'll make the toys for you.
Yeah, so it allows people to see their designs like realized in 3 dimensions.
Exactly, yeah.
Speaking to a lot of indie toy makers at New York Comic Con, it seems like that's kind of the moment for a lot of creatives, is when you see your thing visualized sitting in front of you on a desk.
Yeah. I know when I get figures I've worked on in person in hand, because being remote in Seattle and not being in Hong Kong, I don't get the immediate look at it. Like I'll get videos or I'll get images, but once you have it in hand, it's the coolest feeling in the world.
Yeah. Well, I've got just kind of two last questions. One I've always wondered about, and then one relating back to Transformers.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about 3A toys, and I'm talking about 3-0 toys, I've always wondered, am I okay just to go like your guys' stuff when referring to both of those things?
Yeah, I mean, Ash has very clear distinctions, and in the office there are, there's a clear divide of 3-0 staff, 3A staff, and also 2 different factories. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, that's the same office. It's Kim. The only difference is Ash is not involved in the 3-0 projects. Yeah. But we're sister companies, and when one company does well, the other company, benefits from it. So it's a really good back and forth, and it's fun because it gives Kim a ton of the ability to work on projects he wouldn't necessarily want to work on with Ash. Or Ash would be like, I don't have any interest in Game of Thrones, but Kim is like, I like Game of Thrones, let's do Game of Thrones.
And my last question is a very hypothetical one, so we're going to get into Dreamland here.
Yeah.
So let's say that this license did come with the ability to make a converting product, like a vehicle to robot. It's kind of a two-parter. Would you even want to?
Oh yeah.
Like, and if you did, like, how much of a task do you find that exciting? The idea of trying to tackle that puzzle?
Oh yeah, that I would love to. We talk about creating our own original lines that transform. But I mean, if we could make a transforming transformer, that would be just the best thing in the world.
It's a crossroad I love to see a toy company have to get past.
I would love the challenge, and I know the engineers would love the challenge of just being able to do that. And I think with 3.0 getting the Votom's license and having the Scope Dog be able to transform into the the sitting resting pose.
Yeah.
I'm sure that was like for the engineer there, that was probably like the dream come true. Just yes.
They're kind of like, now if we could just have wheels flip out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, wings.
Yep.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to seeing how the G1 license guys turn out.
Yeah.
Dark of the Moon, as I understand it, you've completed that license line for now.
We just announced at the show we are continuing with the movie lines, so we're going to be doing figures from Age of Extinction and The Last Night.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
I have a thing. I kind of like that Age of Extinction Optimus design.
He's coming.
That's good to hear.
Something I can say, yes.
And are you guys still aiming for the same scale on those?
Yeah, so Optimus will be 19 inches tall, and then when we do a Megatron, he'll be the same height.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's going to be big, bad robots.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And that was my big question, was whether or not you guys are going to go into the current movie line.
Yeah, so. I mean, the demand for more movie line has been huge, and like we notice it, we hear it, and we push Hasbro, and we're talking with Takara, and hopefully, the deal's signed, so we're moving forward. We should have the first figure out around the time that the Last Night movie comes out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll be keeping my eyes out in the news. Hope to see more exciting G1 stuff as well.
Yeah.
And thanks
next up is Bumblebee.
Ooh. He's probably not going to be 19 inches tall, I'm guessing.
He's going to be 9 inches tall, and then we're going to give him a 6-inch spike figure.
All right.
Yeah.
Are you able to say if that's going to be a cloth goods outfit on Spike? All right.
Yeah, it's Ash's redesigning all of it, so it's going to be his kind of like dot-eyed, Playmobil or Play School kind of Tintin-looking characters.
But
Spike.
We're probably looking at a hard hat of some kind.
We're still debating on if he's going to have two heads or like a head with a hat.
All right.
We'll see.
All right, cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Yeah.
Thanks for your time. The dealer room is actually closing in around us.
Yes.
So before we get crushed, we're gonna cut this one short.
All right.
But thanks for your time, and I'll talk to you later.
Cool. Thank you.